On this episode of CIA Contagious Influencers of America, whether you want to be an artist, a manager, or you just want to be in the music business, you can't figure it out. We have somebody here that can give you a roadmap. He's written a book, and I can't wait to have him on because he is a heavy hitter.
I mean, the first artist I signed was Audio Adrenaline, the second artist I signed was Switchfoot, and the third artist I signed was MercyMe.
We have a show for you today, and we have a heavy hitter in the house. He's been a manager for numerous record-breaking artists and bands. He was once the executive producer of a film that did something like $90 million at the box office, and it's a great film, one of my favorites. My guest today is Scott Brickell. I'm David Sams. This is CIA Contagious Influencers of America, the podcast from the producers of Keep the Faith, the number one faith-based show in all of American radio. Now, Scott is the founder and president of BrickHouse Entertainment, and he's here to talk about the ins, the outs of the music industry. His book is called The Business Behind the Song, and it's essentially a guidebook for anyone curious about the music industry. You know, not everybody wants to be the star, but there's so many roles to play, and he's going to give you a fantastic glimpse on how to fulfill your calling. Plus, he's going to talk a little bit about the movie I Can Only Imagine. And boy, what a great film that was! I just love that. And he was portrayed by Trace Adkins. And if you put the two of them side by side, it's amazing. They could be nearly twins. I mean, the casting was amazing. So let's get to my interview with Scott Brickell. Hey, Scott, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We finally get to do this. So I just got to ask you, you've been at this a long time.
I sure have. Over 30 years.
Looking back on your decision to do what you are doing, is there ever a time that you say, wow, I wish I would have dug those ditches. I wish I would have done something entirely different with my life. And if I had to do it all over again, it would be...
First of all, no, I haven't ever thought, I wish I'd have done something. I tried to do something different. You know, I kind of fought being in the music business all the way through, even though I was already doing the music business, just voluntarily helping out a friend, you know, kind of through high school and into college. And I had no idea I was training for my future career. I would say if I were to go back and do anything different, I'd be a pilot.
Really?
Yep.
And why is that?
Well, I got my private pilot's license 2 days after I graduated from Baylor. And my dad was a Marine helicopter pilot in Vietnam. And I got my helicopter rating back in 18. And my son graduated from Liberty with his aviation degree. He now has all of his ratings, all of his certificates. He's about 100 hours away from going to the commuter airlines. He's going to work for Piedmont Air. And it's just something that I've always enjoyed. It's, you know, it's kind of in the blood. My dad would take me up in helicopters when I was a kid, and he also flew fire patrol, and I'd take my naps in the back of the little airplane, you know, and just have always enjoyed it. And I enjoy it as a hobby now, but that's probably the direction I would have gone.
So why the music business?
I mean, honestly, it was the Lord constantly opening doors for me to just continue to help out artists and be able to serve in the capacity of either a road manager or a merch guy or something, just getting me started. My first experience was I was at a church camp when I was a junior in high school, and the camp was a Monday to Friday, And so the Thursday night is the We Are the World night, where everybody gets saved and everybody rededicates and everybody's crying and all that.
Been there.
Yeah. Well, that night, the concert was just happened to be a friend of mine that I had been on swim team with in grade school. But he had gone off to college. I hadn't seen him in 5 years. And after it was over with, I just went up to chat with him. But he had all kinds of people around him. So I just started packing up his keyboard and, putting all his stuff away and just kind of figured out where it all went. And then I kind of looked at him and gave him the key signal, like, I want to start your van. So he threw me his keys. I backed his van up. And I got some guys to help me load it all up. And afterwards, I just told him, finally everybody was done talking to him. So I went up and visited with him. And I just told him at the end of it, I was like, hey, if you ever need any help, I'll be happy to go out on the road with you and, help you set up, tear down, drive, whatever. And I said, I'll do it for free. And one of my motivations was when I backed his van up, his van had air conditioning, and my dad's tractors did not have air conditioning because I was working on the farm whenever I wasn't, busy doing school or basketball or whatever else. And so I was like, hey, if I'm working for free, I might as well just cruise around in a van with air conditioning. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't seen Brian in 5 years. That was the name of the artist. And that next week I saw him 5 times around town, 5 days in a row. And on the 5th time, he walked up behind me and he goes, I guess I'm supposed to take you on the road. And I was just laughing about it. Like, oh yeah, good to see you again. Okay, you take me on the road. Looking back, it was just the Lord, and Brian's sensitivity to the Holy Spirit and knowing that, hey, he wouldn't keep putting us in each other's paths if there wasn't something there. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so Brian, he started calling me and, he'd say, I got a weekend here. I've got, when's your spring break? I'll try to book a short little run around Oklahoma and Kansas. And he did that all the way through college. I played basketball at a local junior college and went off to Baylor. I crammed, college is 4 years. I crammed 4 years into 5. I was one of those guys that really pushed hard to get through college. It took an extra year. But through all that, I'd helped Brian out, and he planned one of my spring breaks. We did a California run. And so I got out of class on a Friday, went to Dallas and flew to California, and he was already out there waiting for me. And we went up and down the coast, and just all that was just training for me to do what I do today. And I had no idea. I thought I was going to work for Texas Instruments in Dallas because I got a degree in production operations management, which is a just-in-time inventory, quality control, bottleneck study kind of degree. And it translates to what I do, with getting albums done and getting tours out on the road and that kind of stuff. But I had no idea that I was, doing all that training with Brian and this was going to be my career. But, I guess I'm thick-headed. I didn't really kind of see the writing on the wall, what God was lining up for me. And it was just one of those things that finally I woke up and I'm like, oh, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And I just love serving. I think that's been what I do every day is just serve artists and, try to help them with their ideas, with their marketing plans, with their album releases or their tours, is just try to help them, see their ideas through. And it's been a joy. And I forget who said it, but some theologian somewhere along the way said, if you're called to serve, don't stoop to be a king. And I've kind of always thought, that's something to remind myself of every once in a while whenever I'm in the middle of a hard day or whatever, because, serving is it's really my life calling, and it's what I've been doing, and it's what I enjoy doing.
So when did you really step into the role itself?
Of being a manager?
Yeah.
So the early days of coming to Nashville, I was working for a company called Chapel Hill, and we were more of a financial management company. And we were doing finances for that artist, Brian, but also for some producers in town, and then 2 bands, DC Talk and the Newsboys. And Toby Mack kind of took a liking to me and wanted me to be his tour accountant on the Free at Last tour. And, I had been paying road guys throughout the time that I'd been working at Chapel Hill. And I kind of didn't enjoy, seeing how they'd make a lot of money and then make no money. And then need advances before the next tour. And, I kind of wasn't into that. Right. And so I was like, Toby, I don't think this is really what I want to do. But what I didn't know is, Audio Adrenaline was going to be the opening act for that tour. And they were kind of looking at me to be their day-to-day manager, through Toby's management company, True Artist Management. And so whenever they kind of told me that, I was like, okay, I'm in. And they said, hey, be the tour accountant. That's your main job. But if you can develop a relationship with Audio Adrenaline, then, at the end of the tour, we'll turn you into, their day-to-day manager. And I mean, it was 2 days into the tour when, we all kind of agreed this was going to work. And Mark Stewart and Will McGinnis and Bob Herdman, we all just got along, really well. And so I mean, honestly, during that tour, I was the tour accountant, but I was already operating as their day-to-day. And so that's kind of the first time I stepped into being a day-to-day manager, not the full manager, but just really, taking care of the management responsibilities out on the road and communicating back to the office, how things were going and keeping the schedule tight and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, on the Free at Last tour, that was that was also the first time I was a tour accountant. So that was an interesting, fun tour. And I took care of comps on that tour, which everybody wanted to come to that tour. So that was kind of fun, doing 3 jobs. But, yeah, I mean, that was kind of the first entry into being sort of the management side of things.
And you just took to it. You knew that that's where you were supposed to be.
Yeah. I had watched Dan Pitts, work with Toby, for probably 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. And I just loved what Dan did. Dan's a servant. Dan is a servant-hearted man, and he's gentle and loves to brainstorm with Toby and help Toby organize his thoughts and help Toby meet deadlines, which, if anybody knows Toby Mack, he'd still be mixing the Free at Last record if we let him. he'd be trying to find a different snare sound or whatever. But, Dan, I watched Dan handle, just the whole interaction with Toby and the rest of the guys, Michael Tate and K-Max. And, those were some interesting moments in their career. And I was just, I really was intrigued by, what he did and how he did it. And I was like, I could do that. That kind of seemed like something that would line up with me. And I jokingly say managers don't do anything. They just make sure everybody else does their job. Mm-hmm. But, I really do believe serving is just, is where it's at for managers. You just got to be willing to put the artist first and their schedule, their ideas. And I've learned, I let the artist come up with the ideas, because I've tried throughout the years to throw out a couple ideas. And if it's not the artist idea, they'll hardly lift a finger for it. But if it's their idea, they'll stay up all night for it, Mm-hmm. And so, I just listen to what they want to do. And, sometimes I'll say that's not a good idea, but most of the time I'll at least explore it a little bit, and come back with some feedback or whatever. But, yeah, so that was, watching Dan do what he did, I was like, I think I can do that.
So growing up on the farm, right, you had no idea at that time that this is where you would end up, right? What did your parents think as they watched this evolve? Have I hit a nerve?
Well, so parents, but, I don't know if you heard me earlier, my dad was a Marine, right? And so, get the job, and it's got to make sense. And, you went to school to get a degree and, graduate from Baylor and just the whole, like, working for Brian. Like, I graduated and worked for Brian after I graduated. And up until I graduated college, Brian hadn't paid me a penny, right? All those years and spring breaks and all that stuff. He'd never paid me anything. But when I graduated, Brian's like, well, why don't I put you on salary? And he paid me $600 a month. And
I'm sure your dad loved that.
Oh my gosh. So my dad's stipulation was, okay, but when you're not on the road, you're at the farm, right? And so I told Brian, hey, I can't do any advance work. I can't, do booking calls or nothing. As soon as we get back, I'm going straight to the farm and dig post holes and castrate calves and all that. Well, then whenever I moved to Nashville and started working for Brian's manager, that's whenever I got a raise to $1,000 a month.
Wow.
And I worked all week for Brian's manager, and then I would fly out and help Brian on the weekends. And that was my dad just looked at me and was just like, I don't get it, but if this is what you feel like God's calling you to do. So I had supportive parents, and my mom all along was like, she was a huge reason that I even know anything about music. She made me take piano lessons for 6 years in grade school, and I hated every minute of it.
As did I.
Did you really?
I had a piano teacher who used to put my finger on the middle C and pound it. And I'd come out and my finger would just be, I'm not bleeding, but it was so
Isn't that
sore.
a great way to teach someone how to play piano, right? Break your finger. But, I found a sort of a appreciation for music through that. And so she was always very supportive. And, I started early on, just get up every morning and ask God what I'm supposed to do today. And not from a standpoint of, if I've got a flight, I'm not changing my flight. But while I'm going to the airport, while I'm checking my bags, while I'm getting on the plane, like, how can I serve, those around me? How can I serve Christ? How can I serve eternity? Being, who I am with the gifts that God gave me. And that's just kind of been, what I've done my whole life. And whenever I came to Nashville and my dad was just like, I don't get it, but if you feel like this is where you're supposed to be, I'll support you. Mm-hmm. Now, so support me wasn't like I'm giving you a check every month. It was more like I'm not going to make you come back home and, apply for being a copier salesman. But
right.
That kind of thing. That's how he supported me. He didn't rag on me every time I talked to him. That was how he was being supportive.
So see, I wasn't that far off in the beginning when I said, if you weren't digging ditches.
No, because post holes.
Your dad.
I know how to operate a post hole digger. Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's before they had the auger that you put on the back of the tractor that would dig a post hole for you. I was doing it by hand. So,
how far down did you have to go?
For a normal post, you probably go down about 2.5 feet.
Oh my goodness.
For a corner post, you gotta bury a tie, and that's a good 3-4 feet.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Times how many posts is that?
Oh, don't even. Hundreds.
So let's talk about how things then really, really took off for you, okay? And the artists that you work with. Sort of take us through that. What's the timeline now that we're talking about?
So I moved to Nashville in January of 92 and worked for Chapel Hill for 2.5 years, and then I worked for True Artists for 4.5 years, and that's whenever I was day-to-day for Audio Adrenaline. And then my wife got pregnant with our first child, and I just went to her and I said, I've got to get a real job. Like, I can't continue to play around in the music business. And she's like, I think you're called to this. And so I was like, well, maybe I start my own management company. And she's like, yeah, do that. And for her to tell me to start my own management company right after she found out she's pregnant, give it up to her, right? Like, that was a tough moment for all of us. But, so I did that. Audio Adrenaline decided, would prefer you. They told me it would prefer you stay at True Artists, but if you're leaving, then we want to go with you. And, that was an interesting time because, they had a sunset with True Artists that they had to pay out. And so, it was, we call those the salad days around my house, because me and my wife would save some pimento cheese and crackers for Sunday lunch. But, it took a couple years to get it off the ground, but the first artist I signed was Audio Adrenaline. The second artist I signed was Switchfoot, and the third artist I signed was MercyMe.
Wow. Not a bad lineup.
Not a bad lineup at all. So, those were some fun years. And, obviously within, a year or so of signing MercyMe, I can only imagine took off. And then it was just hold on for dear life. And, just make the best decisions you can with the information you have at the time. And we made some good decisions and some bad decisions, but we survived to live another day, and here we are.
And the next thing you know, Trace Adkins is playing you in a movie.
Man, that was something else. I'll tell you what, a weird moment for sure,
But the Irwins did a great job casting you.
I mean, they had worked with him before, and they interviewed me sort of, like this, and they videoed it, and they got done, and it, John and Andy, the Irwin brothers, they just kind of looked at each other like halfway through, and they're like, okay, this is a no-brainer. And I was like, what? And they go, we know who's going to play you. But they didn't tell me for a while. They wanted to make sure he was in. And then when they told me, I was like, yeah, whatever. I was like, there's no way. And I didn't believe it till he was on set. Like it took me all the way till the day he was on set for me to go, okay, this is really going to happen. Because, little known fact, they started shooting that movie right after Thanksgiving. And I think they shot for 20 days in December, took 2 weeks off for Christmas, and then shot 8 days in January. And it was 28-day shoot, right? When they started shooting, they still didn't have the Dennis Quaid person under contract.
I'm aware of that one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until like halfway through those first 20 days that they got Dennis lined up to play, Bart's dad. And so knowing all that, like if they didn't have that person lined up, like you're not worried about person playing me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I was such a small part of the whole thing. And so I couldn't believe it till he walked on set, and, I actually saw him. Trace and I both flew to Oklahoma City on the same plane, didn't know it, and landed and went to baggage claim. I saw Andy Irwin, at baggage claim. I waved to him, then I went to the bathroom.
And you still had no idea?
I still didn't know he was there. And I walked out, and they were sitting there talking, so I walked up, and Trace kind of had his back to me, and Andy said, well, here he is, ask him yourself. And Trace turned around, looked at me, and he goes, oh, I get it. And just kind of looked me up and down, and he's like, I get it. Okay. So yeah, the next day they sat us down in director's chairs, and he came in the night before, but then he wasn't scheduled to be on set until late the next day. So all that day they had us hang out and put us in director's chairs, gave us the headsets to kind of listen to what the dialogue was, was happening. And between take, they reset everything, and they got to adjust all the lights, and the makeup comes. I mean, it could be 10 to 20 minutes between each take. And they do a lot of takes. My gosh, it's so boring. But it's kind of like listening to an artist sing the same, phrase over and over and over again. It's very similar to that. But we would just sit there and talk between takes, and found out, we both were cut from the same cloth. We both grew up on a farm. We both played college sports. We both don't care what people think about us, and kind of a little rough around the edges. And so he literally, like halfway through the day, we were eating lunch, and he's like, this is going to be easy. He's an artist. He has a manager, so he already knows what managers do. So it was a pretty seamless transition for him to play me. And there was only a couple times where I like he got pretty, not violent, but just real angry with Bart a couple times. And I was like, I would
in the
never,
movie.
Yeah. When they were taking different takes. And I wouldn't, I'd be like, I'd never do that. That's not how I would react.
You.
Yeah. So
did he change it up?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
He was able, but what's funny is he'd come talk to me, and I'd tell him, and then Andy would come over and go, hey, talk to me, as because Andy's in charge of the actors, and
he's the director.
Yeah. And he's like, come talk to me about that. And I was like, he came to me, like, tell him to come to you. So it was kind of funny. But I was on set for 20 of the 28 days total. I'd dip in and out a couple times, but man, that was a cool experience. The Irwin brothers did a really good job with that.
So the whole experience with Bart MercyMe, tell me what that's been like. I mean, first of all, it's crazy because I still think that song, at least on our playlist, is in the top 10 of our playlist. And that what's it now? 25 years old or something? I mean,
it's we're in 23. It's 22 years old. 22
years old. Yeah. It's still on the playlist, right?
Yep.
I heard you once say that you're not an artist until you have that song.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, there's so many people out there that are, they say they're an artist and they're really worship leaders. They're just leading Chris Tomlin or Phil Wickham songs on Sunday. They might write, but they're not leading any of their songs. Or let's say they've maybe snuck one of their songs in a church service. One song in 5 years of being a worship leader at a church. To me, you're not an artist until you've written a song or you have adapted someone else's song that they wrote to you, and people know you for that, and you perform it, and people, are like, oh, I like that song. I want that song. I want to listen to that song. I want, where can I get it? You're really, you might be an amazing vocalist, but you're in a band and you're doing wedding receptions and you're singing covers, and to me, that's not an artist. To me, that's just a cover band or a great vocalist. So to me, you got to really find out who you are, and find, in a song, be able to express yourself in a song that you either wrote or had some sort of participation in writing, or someone came to you or you found a song and you're like, man, that really speaks to me, and maybe you tweak it a little bit for you, for your personal experience or whatever, but you're able to present that song and people go, they feel the emotion because of the way you present it, because they know it's true to who you are. And that's kind of the benchmark for me. I mean, you can write a bunch of songs and you can sing a bunch of songs, but if no one cares about them, you're still not an artist, in my opinion. Like, you really got to find a way to communicate that people care, that what you're saying and want to listen. And really, I mean, to me, it's will they put their phone down and pay attention? If they're not going to put their phone down and pay attention, then you're just white noise in the background.
So as it relates to I Can Only Imagine, when you first experienced that song, did you know it was going to be what it turned out to be?
I knew it was a special song. No one could have predicted all the success that song had, because it's the biggest song in the history of Christian music. So there's nothing that can, go, oh, it's going to be this big or that, because nothing has done what that song's done. But I knew it was special. I probably listened to it 10 times in a row when I first heard it. And
that was a good sign.
Yeah, that's a great sign right there. And I knew it was a great song. My recommendation was let Amy cut it. Whenever that kind of came up early on, I was like, yeah, let's let Amy cut it. And Jeff Mosley and I both agreed, like, hey, you guys can be the ones that wrote I Can Only Imagine, and that'll kind of help launch your career as an artist. And in hindsight, that probably wasn't the best idea, but Lord covered us on that and took care of us. So
did Amy ever come back and say, by the way, I know it's not going to be like this in the movie, but in years from now, but why did you do that?
No, Amy's like that. What happened with that song is exactly what was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And even Jennifer Cook, who, God love Jennifer,
Amy's manager.
Yeah. She and I would talk probably once a month, and I'd just be like, hey, when's that song coming out? When's that song coming out? When's that song coming out? And, she's like, well, this is happening. And, Amy's hard to manage, kind of like Toby Mack. It's like herding cats sometimes. And Jennifer was trying to get the song out and knew it was a good song. And, but whenever it kind of came around to it, Amy's like, you know what, this is y'all's song. You need to see it through. Mm-hmm. So that was, and she said it several times. Like, she's like so happy for us and the way it worked out and all that kind of stuff. So God love her.
It's not like she lost any traction.
Not really. Not really.
And when that song hit the way it hit, how did it change your life and everyone's life involved? Yeah,
it was like, I equate it to getting on the interstate. Most artists get on the interstate, and the on-ramp is sort of releasing the song or releasing the album, and you beat and bang around to try to, find your own place and, what kind of artist are you and where do you fit? And, everybody's trying to get to the fast lane, but that's a couple lanes over. And that song literally picked us up off the on-ramp and just set us in the fast lane in front of everybody. And I don't think we've gotten out of the fast lane since.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So you've written this book, The Business Behind the Song, Navigating a Career in the Music Industry. And boy, this is a real true Bible, so to speak, of the music business. Why did you decide to write it?
Well, I've given the same talk hundreds of times to mostly potential artists. And, when I first started doing the talk, I would, I'd kind of try to help them with some visuals. Well, then I'm like, I'm going to make visuals. So I put it into a Prezi presentation. And also, like when you're talking to a high school kid and they're there with their parents, dad usually wants something to kind of hold on to, and look at. Mm-hmm. And so I turned it into a Prezi presentation. I've given the talk hundreds of times, and David Nasser heard about it. And he was up at Liberty a couple years ago. And he said, hey, I want you to come up and give your talk to my 70 kids that are like either on scholarship or partial scholarship that are under him, and they run the convocations. So he's got a band, he's got a production team, he's got a design team, he's got all these different people. I think he's like 70 something kids. And so I was like, sure. So I went up and gave it to them, and it's about I can make it a 45-minute talk to an hour and a half, however long I want to do it. But I did about an hour talk, and then I said, all right, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go to the bathroom, get a bottle of water, and I'll come back if you have any questions or you want to hear some stories or whatever. But it was like at night, so it was like a 6 to 7 o'clock session that David had me do it in. And I said, but if you haven't had dinner, like you don't have to stay. Like you can leave, or if you got a test to study for or whatever, you're free to go. So I figured, a dozen or so would stick around. Well, all 70 of them stayed, and I did a 3-hour Q&A. And they were asking real questions, like real life, like, they listened to the presentation. They referenced it several times. I told some stories around it, and I walked away from that going, man, one day I need to make this into a book, but when am I going to have time to do that? And that was in November of 19. And what were we doing 5 months later? Mm-hmm. Nothing. Mm-hmm. And so I just started the process.
So this was your pandemic book.
This is my pandemic book. I just started the process, and I have a ghostwriter, and he took everything that I had, and honestly, he's ghostwritten a bunch, and he was like, this is the most material anybody's ever given me for, to ghostwrite, just because I had years. I probably had that Prezi for 15 years, and I've tweaked it over the years. But I gave him the Prezi, I gave him a bunch of stories and, some of my philosophies on, money and things like that. And he just put it all together. And it was fairly easy until the last 2 months before you turn it in. Well, that's also when everything started happening again. We're coming back out, we're doing shows. And so it was pretty annoying to finish it because I'm having to do my real job and, edit the book 5 times. And so I finally got to the point where they'd send me an email, and I just reply I don't care. Send.
just make it happen.
Just whatever. I do care, but it was just tough there at the end because I'm still trying to book shows and get tours out and release albums and singles and all that stuff. So, but part of the reason I did it is my mom. She's no longer with us, but she always wanted to write a book. And so I was like, you know what? I moved around all of her boxes for many years on, that's my box for my book I'm going to write, and she probably had a dozen boxes that I moved around, for 20 years. So I'm like, I'm just going to do it. So.
But this book is a lot more than just about if you want to be an artist. You seem to cover just about every possible profession you can play in the music business. Why is that?
It started off just for the artist. And then as I would give the talk, people started asking questions. Well, what else does the label do? And what kind of jobs do they have there? Or what does a producer do? So I kind of expanded on some of those areas. And when we were sitting around trying to come up with a name, I said, you know what? Let's call it the 182 jobs in the music business. Just threw out an idea. And at the end of each chapter, I list a bunch of jobs that, go along with that chapter. And one of my staff, we're sitting there talking, we're in a table, kind of like this. And about 5 minutes later, he just raises his hand and he goes, hey, there's exactly 182 jobs you list in this book. And I just threw out the number, like just, thinking it was a big number or whatever. And I don't know exactly how many are in the book now, but just, there's so many things you can do in the music business other than just be an artist. And I'm living proof, you're living proof, that you can have a nice career and support your family and do things you love and help people that are helping others. And we need good road managers. We need good stage managers. We need good producers. We need good, radio department people. We need good DJs. We need all those people in this business. And it just seemed natural to me to just go ahead and throw some of those jobs in there. And a lot of people have, since the book's come out, a lot of people have called and said, tell me more about this or tell me more about that. So it's been pretty cool.
So we've seen so many changes take place in the media business and certainly the music business over the last 10, 20 years. Talk to me about the state of the music business now. I know 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was everybody said it's going to be dead. Nobody's making any money. I know when I was in the TV business for 30 years. So when I get into the radio business, I thought, first of all, I thought God was playing a joke on me. Let's start there.
Right.
And then second of all, I don't know how many times I said, this is going to be over in about 3 years. Radio's going to be dead.
Right.
And it's nowhere near
dead.
It has evolved as I guess the music business has evolved, because we saw it one way.
Well, we're going to step away for just a minute with my interview with Scott.
Hi, I'm Jackie Dorman. Are you longing for your soulmate? And maybe you've tried everything and you feel like nothing's working. You've done the online dating, the singles ministry, possibly even the dreaded blind dates set up by well-meaning family and friends. And you're starting to wonder, where are the truly Christian men that want to seek me out for a committed, loving relationship without the head games? Well, I'm here to help. I want you to join me for my free Married in 12 Months challenge, where I am going to show you all the tools you need to step into the love story that God has already written about you. I'm going to teach you about why now is your time, why God wants you married even more than you want to be married, what are the lies that are holding you back, the law of attraction that's biblical, and what are the tools to stepping into that bride that you want to become. So join me at lovestories.com for my free Married in 12 Months challenge, where we'll get you out of the waiting room and into the love story that you've been dreaming of. Join me at lovestories.com. I hope to see you there.
Now let's get back to my interview with Scott Brickell.
We saw it one way, right?
Right.
And then it just it went from, of course, I can say I remember 8-track, but we 8-track, vinyl, cassette, right?
Oh yeah.
CD, and then all of a sudden everything drops off a cliff, right? And now it's streaming.
Yep.
So tell me how you've looked at this change, how it's impacted your business, how it's impacted the business of being an artist over the last 3 or 4 years.
I think the biggest change that I've seen and how it's affected our industry is just labels don't have as much developmental money as they used to. They're now selling singles for streaming pennies. Versus they were selling singles for $16.95, back in the day when you had to buy the whole thing to get the one song. And, that has just shortened the amount of money that they have to try out new things, work with new artists, develop new artists, give artists a budget to try some demos, to try different producers. Now, if you have about, 1.5 shots to make it as an artist, if you really want to go the radio route, and if you don't, it's a tough road. So I tell artists all the time, write a song, go sing it live, and if people pay attention, you have something. If they don't, don't ever sing that song again, unless you rewrite it, and you're allowed to rewrite a song 3 times in my book. After that, it's just not a good song. And you really have to test everything yourself as an artist. You got to get your own plane in the air, is what I say, versus letting a label help you get your plane in the air, or a manager help you get your plane in the air. And you have to make sure that plane is well balanced, meaning you got to have a well balanced life. You got to be, mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, like everything's got to be solid, because once you get your plane in the air, if it's got any commercial ability at all, and a label decides to strap some jet engines to it, if you're not solid, it's going to disintegrate. And I mean, we've all seen it happen. An artist that has a great single or has a great song, and here comes the label, and they go, all right, let's go, and they make it about another 1,000 feet up, and boom, it just falls apart. So it's more, this day and age, it's more on the artist to, really figure out who they are before they, really try to approach a label. And managers can help with that, and booking agents can help with that a little bit. And labels, they're willing to talk to you, but they're just not able to step in and go, all right, we're going to put you with some producers, and we're going to, try to see what kind of music really fits well with you, and that kind of stuff. And even put you out on tour. Like, it's just, there's not a lot of tour support money. There's not a lot of developmental money. I mean, who was it? Bob Dylan, he put out 6 records before he made it. That doesn't happen anymore, And I'm with you. Like, in 2005, I say all the time, and if you'd asked me in 2005, is radio going to be around in 2023? I'd have said there's no way in a manger. Mm-hmm. And I would have been wrong. I mean, they're stronger now. Radio is as strong as it's ever been, and I don't see it changing. Mm-hmm. Like, it's where the professionals are, and so many people still look to radio and go, okay, well, we want to act like we're a podcast that's, has a playlist or whatever, but they don't know. They're looking to the professionals to go, okay, what's good? And what's going to be around 6 months from now? Because they don't want to put out a podcast or a playlist that's got something that's going to, get dropped off quick. So everybody's looking to the program directors and the DJs and going, okay, what's really working? And they have relationships with labels, and a program director isn't looking to add a song. They're looking for any reason not to. And if you're not signed to a label, that's one reason not to add your song, And so, I think radio's here to stay. I think, labels, even though you can write a song in the morning and record it in the afternoon and put it out that night, or put it up on a streaming platform that night, like, all that's good. But if you really want to do this for 10 years or longer, then you gotta get a manager, you gotta get a booking agent, you gotta get a label, you gotta get some PR behind you, and some partners, and I call them friends, because that's what we are in this business. We're all friends.
What role does social media play? Will labels even look at you unless you have 1 million followers? I mean, I've heard crazy things. I mean, we went to the country radio seminar, I think last year, the year before, and there was an executive that stand up there and said that they have a division in LA that does nothing but wake up in the morning to see who's sticking, who's got traction,
right?
And they literally make an offer based on what they see sticks.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that the most important thing now?
It's a very important thing. I would say the song's the most important thing, but you got your social media has got to be on point, and you got to make sure that, I tell people all the time, constantly curate it. Like, go back and check some of your old posts, pull down some things that don't have the likes and the shares that you need to kind of be above a certain line, have all your stuff above a certain line. But that's social media is absolutely important.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, put that in there too.
Oh, okay. AI. Okay, we've all seen this thing get a little crazy here in the last few months.
Nuts, yeah.
It's kind of cool in a way too, right? And I hear things about it replacing live folks on radio, and then I hear what you can do with it music wise right now, and it's every day it gets better and better and better. What are your predictions? What's your prediction on AI as it relates to artistry, as it relates to putting out music in the next year or two?
I mean, I honestly hadn't thought much about it, but I don't think you can replace the live person. You know, I mean, I jokingly had somebody send me something where it was Bart, you know, doing some sort of spot or, you know, something. And I sent it to the band, and they picked it up immediately. You know, obviously they know Bart. But I think it's going to run its course. I think it's a fun little toy right now, and I think it's going to run its course. I think, but there's nothing that can replace the live person, the live show. I don't know. I hadn't experienced it enough to know. You know, I mean, I know it's kind of creepy. You know how good it is, and how, you know, it'll change your resume for whatever job you're trying to get, and, you know, you'll get a call back versus you just sending in your resume and you're not getting a call back. Like, I've heard that several times. Like, let AI you know, change your resume if you want to actually get an interview. But
I'll tell you how I have written content.
Yep.
Spots, right? You know, just comes out of my mind based on, well, this is a good spot. I think it's going to be. Then I go in and say, rewrite this to appeal to a 45-year-old or 35 to 45-year-old woman.
Okay.
Right? And it will rewrite it. And I'm like, dag, that works. You know, I mean, these are, in the old days, you'd hire an ad agency, right?
Yeah.
Go write this, go write that, and then maybe you'd have a focus group, blah, blah, blah. You know, you go through the process, right? You can literally do that in 30 seconds now.
Oh, wow.
So that's where I think, and by the way, there's not, you know, in the quote unquote old days, you know, you would have an editor or a copy, you know, you'd be a copywriter, have an editor, go through the process, right? In my opinion, that's what it is. You now all have this sort of automated AI staff working with you, right? So I think it enhances the creative process. I don't think it takes away from.
Okay.
You know, it's like if you're writing a song and you go to some rhyming dictionary to find the 47 words that rhyme with whatever you're trying to do, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, isn't that cheating?
Yeah.
You know, it's not in your brain.
Right.
But you know you got to get there.
Yep.
It's just like back in the olden days when I was in high school, I'd be in algebra class and I'd bring a calculator and they'd say, you're never going to amount to anything. You don't know how to do it right here, right in the brain.
What, are you going to carry a calculator around with you the rest of your life? Yeah.
So I think it's an enhancement. I think it helps to just break through a lot of mind clutter because we're all have so many things going on in our minds.
Yep.
Obviously there's a downside to it, but there is with anything else. You know, it's a balance. It's a creative balance, I think.
So you think it's good for giving people ideas and looking at things a little bit different, but
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. I
really do. I really do. That would be an interesting. That would really be an interesting songwriting process or camp, though, is to put a bunch of people in a room and come up with the next big hit sort of thing and use AI to get there.
Yeah.
You know, not to finalize it, because you can still. I mean, when I go through a process of using it, literally, I will sit there and communicate with it. I'll go, yeah, you know what? That's really great. But what about this? And it will come back and say, oh, I'm sorry. That's a good observation. I mean, it actually communicates with you.
And what are you on an app? Or are you on
ChatGPT?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. And go ahead and pay the $20 a month for version 4.
Okay.
It's worth it.
Gotcha.
But literally, I mean, especially if you're writing a campaign, you know, we just did something, right, for a major studio, right? because we had to change up a spot to appeal to our particular CCM audience and make it family friendly.
Okay.
And there's a big budget involved here. By the way, this is a movie.
Okay.
Right? And the studio provided something, and it had content in it that didn't apply to our audience, or we had to change out a few. And I communicated that. We have to do a family-friendly version, but I wanted to get the idea across. And by the way, here's the 2 or 3 points I'd love to fit in too. Bam, hit the button, spell it out. We sent it to the studio. They go, what did they say? What did they say? Didn't he say? They basically said, this is brilliant, looks great, like literally better than ours.
Wow. Well, there you go.
I'm like, send me the check.
Use it as a tool. Then let's go.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But that's no different than having 3 or 4 people down the hall, throwing out ideas, and you go, that's great. Let's fit that
cheaper.
in, and it's cheaper,
right?
That's the manager.
What'd you say? $20 a month? What was it?
$20 a month.
Yeah, that's cheaper than 3 or 4 employees.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, Denise.
It's faster too. I gotta say, it's faster than me.
Oh yeah, but it is interesting. It's like the whole radio business. The idea that it's first of all, I don't know how many people actually have a radio in the house anymore.
Right.
I was cleaning out some things about 2 months ago. As I hired a couple of big dumpsters to throw out things, and I actually had 2 radios, and I literally, my heart started beating, and it was like, can I really throw this out? I'm in this business.
Someone's going to catch you.
Right? Somebody's going to catch me.
Someone's going to picture you mid-chunk. Like, canceled.
But I hung on to it, but then I'm thinking, all I have to do is go to Alexa and say, play this station, play that station, right. Go to my phone app, right?
I'm a radio guy. I've got a radio in my garage. I've got a radio in my shop, and they're just on. Like, they're on 24/7.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So I think it's a fun time. It's an interesting time. I mean, when I first got into business on the TV side, we didn't even have videotape.
Right.
And you had a Bell and Howell camera, the 16 millimeter film, and 2.5 minutes of film in it. You had to go out and shoot a news story on that thing.
Now you're like, I'm good. I got my phone.
Yeah. Now you can do 5,000 takes. I speak for a lot of kids to colleges like you do. And I pass around that Bell and Howell camera that weighs 100 tons. And I said, this is what I had to use.
Yeah.
Because
carry that around for half a day.
No, we're gonna. What happens if I can't get my story out there? I'm like, you have no excuse. You can shoot. You can literally shoot a movie on your iPhone. You can underscore it. You can upload it.
Right.
Edit it. You can upload it and have worldwide distribution. I used to shoot 2.5 minutes of film and then display it on from a projector on a sheet on my parents' wall. That was my distribution.
Yep.
So, and it's just like making a song now.
Yep.
Anybody can make a song. Anybody can upload it, have distribution, right?
Yep.
Now, the most important part of that whole equation is getting people to hear it, which now you're talking about marketing. Right? And very few people have any idea on how to do that.
That's a tough one. And there's so much clutter out there these days.
So much clutter.
Hard to cut through.
So much clutter. And we could talk about that forever, cutting through all of this. But I love how you say it all still comes down to the song.
Period.
At the end of the day.
Period. Like, that's it. Absolutely.
So as we wrap this up, looking back over your career, give me 3 songs that were so defining and just and they will withstand the hands of time. They'll just like I can only imagine's obviously.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Word of God Speak, I think, is another one. And even if, I mean, those are all 3 MercyMe's. You can talk about Living Hope with Phil Wickham, or Different from Micah Tyler, or there's just a lot of great ones out there. But I think
I've got a good one for you. When we first started doing Keep the Faith, Danny McGuffey gave me a CD, and he says, I want you to listen to this. He says, this is perfect for what you're trying to do.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And I took it to our guys who are experts in the radio side, and they basically said, we don't get it. It's some woman singing and it's a piano.
Oh, no.
It was Laura Story, Blessings.
Oh, wow.
But they're like, there's only a piano.
Yeah.
Who is this person, right?
Right.
So it is the power of a song.
I also got to mention Big House by Audio Adrenaline.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, that was early in my career, and that definitely changed a lot for me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if I'm out and about, everybody's like, what's your favorite song? I can only imagine. What's your favorite movie? I can only imagine. I mean, I call a spade, right? It's paid for a lot for me and my family, right? So, yeah.
So what's your big dream? Where do you go from here?
I love what I'm doing. I love managing. I love helping artists. I've got a couple up and coming managers that I'm helping out, and Chase Swayze has been with me now 7 years, and I just hired a new Liberty grad who I did the Prezi for, and he changed his major to music and decided he was gonna not be a psych major but a music major, and he thought he was going to be a producer for a while, and then changed to management. And so I hired him last May, and so he's been with me a little over a year, and we just want to help artists.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, listen, I really appreciate you stopping by the homestead here. The Business of Behind the Song is the book, and it's available now wherever books are sold, and I would encourage you to pick it up if you're looking to have anything to do with the music business,
or if you know anybody. Like, yeah, a lot of people said I bought it from my nephew or my worship pastor or whatever. So, but man, thanks for having me on. It's been fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
We'll do it again sometime.
Sounds good.
Thanks again, Scott. His book is called The Business Behind the Song, Navigating a Career in the Music Industry. Please do pick it up wherever you get your books, and I know that's probably Amazon.com. That's where I get my books. I love you too, Barnes & Noble, but do check out Scott's book, because nobody knows the business like he does, okay? And I know you're really going to appreciate the insight that he provides, the tools, the resources. So do check out that book. I think it's better than going to school for music. I mean, he puts it out there and he lays it out for you. It's like he's the architect of all this. So please do check out Scott's book. This has been CIA, Contagious Influencers of America, from the producers of Keep the Faith. Do check out KeepTheFaith.com. Wow, do we have some amazing goodies for you right now at KeepTheFaith.com. We have totally relaunched the site. We've got literally hundreds of programs and resources for you there. And I think you're going to really, really be blown away. And also, we've just recently launched something called the membership suite, which includes therapy, and it's affordable therapy. And we have something like 30,000 therapists for you. And, you get matched up with somebody that is right for you. If you don't like that therapist, you basically say, I don't like the therapist. I want a new therapist. So it's really cool. And it's really affordable, really, truly affordable. So do check that out at KeepTheFaith.com. And of course, all of our podcasts can be found at CIA. That's what is it? Contagious Influencers. Yeah, contagiousInfluencers.com. So do check that out, and please do rate and review us. That would be really cool. It's that's the way people find us, and I really am so appreciative of those of you who do take time to share the podcast with others. Okay, especially in social media. So please do that. And do one more thing for me. This week, go out there, live that life in living color, because it sure is a heck of a lot more interesting than living it in black and white. See you next time.